Alright, you guys, so I just got done reading chapter 3, so if you want to check out chapter 3 of the Sex and the City series, go back a video and you will find that chapter. Also, if you have not seen chapters 1 and 2, those are also a few videos back, so make sure you check those out so you can be caught up to speed on what's going on. So now we're going to move on to chapter 4, and this is called Manhattan Wedlock, Never Married Women, Toxic Bachelors. Lunch the other day, vicious gossip with the man I'd just met. We were discussing mutual friends, a couple. He knew the husband, I knew the wife. I'd never met the husband, and I'd never seen the wife in years, except to run into her occasionally on the street. But as usual, I knew everything about the situation. "It's going to end badly," I said. He was naive, a country mouse. He came in from Boston, and he didn't know anything about her, and she jumped at the opportunity. She'd already gone through so many guys in New York, and she had a reputation. No guy in New York would have married her. I attacked my fried chicken, warming up to the subject. Women in New York know. They know when they have to get married, and that's when they do it. Maybe they've slept with too many guys, or they know nothing's ever going to really happen with their career. Or maybe they really do want kids. Until then, they put it off for as long as they can. Then they have the moment, and they don't take it. I shrugged. That's it. Chances are they'll never get married. The other guy at a table, a corporate dotting dad type who lives in Westchester, was looking at us in horror. "But what about love?" he asked. I looked at him pityingly. "I don't think so. When it comes to finding a marriage partner, New York has its own particularly cruel mating rituals, as complicated and sophisticated as those in the Edith Wharton novel. Everyone knows the rules, but no one wants to talk about them. The result is that New York has bred a particular type of woman. Smart, attractive, successful, and never married. She's in her late 30s or early 40s, and if empirical knowledge is good for anything, she probably never would have got married. This is not about statistics or exceptions. We all know about the successful playwright who married the beautiful fashion designer a couple of years older than he is. But when you're beautiful and successful and rich and know everyone, the normal rules don't apply. What if, on the other hand, you're 40 and pretty and you're a television producer or have your own PR company, but you still live in a studio and sleep on a fold-off couch? The 90s equivalent of Mary Tyler Moore. Except, unlike Mary Tyler Moore, you've actually gone to bed with all those guys instead of only kicking them out at 12:02 a.m. What happens to those women? There are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of women like this in this city. We all know lots of them, and we all agree they're great. They travel, they pay taxes, they'll spend $400 on a pair of Milano blanket strappy sandals. There is nothing wrong with these women, said Jerry, 39, a corporate lawyer who happened to marry one of these smart women 3 years older than he is. They're not crazy or neurotic. They're not fatal attraction, Jerry paused. Why do I know so many great women who aren't married and no great guys? Let's face it, the unmarried guys in New York suck. The M&Ms. Here's the deal, Jerry said. There's a window of opportunity for women to get married in New York. Somewhere between the ages of 26 and 35. Or maybe 36. We've agreed that if a woman is being married once, she can always get married again. There's something special about knowing how to close the deal. But all of a sudden, when women get to 37 or 38, there's all of this stuff, he said. Baggage. They've been around too long. Their history works against them. If I were single and found out that a woman had gone out with Mort Zuckerman or Marvin, a publisher, the M&Ms, forget it. Who wants to be 20th on that line? And then if they pull any of those other stunts like children out of wedlock or rehab, says that's a problem. Jerry told a story. Last summer, he was at a small dinner at the Hamptons. The guests were in TV and movies. He and his wife were trying to fix up a 40-year-old former model with a guy who had just gotten divorced. The two were talking, and suddenly something came up about Mort Zuckerman. And suddenly Jerry and his wife were watching the guy turn off. There's a list of toxic bachelors in New York, said Jerry, and they're deadly. Later in the day, I relay the story to Anna, who's 36, and who has a habit of disagreeing with everything men say. All guys want to sleep with her, and she's constantly chewing them out for being shallow. She's dated the M&Ms, and she knows Jerry. When I tell her the story, she screams. Jerry is jealous. He'd like to be more than those guys, except he doesn't have the money or the power to pull it off. Scratch the surface, and every guy in New York wants to be Mort Zuckerman. George, 37, an investment banker, is another guy who sees the toxic bachelors as a problem. These guys, the plastic surgeon, the Times editor, the crazy guy who owns those fertility clinics, they all take out the same pool of women and it never goes anywhere. He said, yeah, if I met a woman who had gone out with all those guys, I wouldn't like it. Kids or lingerie? If you're Diane Sawyer, you'll always be able to get married, said George. But even women who are A's and A-minuses can miss out. The problem is, in New York, people self-select down to smaller and smaller groups. You're dealing with a crowd of people who are enormously privileged, and their standards are incredibly high. And then there are all of your friends. Look at you, said George. There's nothing wrong with any of the guys you've gone out with, but we always give you shit about them. That was true. All of my boyfriends have been wonderful in their own way, but my friends have found fault with every one of them, mercilessly chewing me out for putting up with any of their perceived, but in my mind, excusable flaws. Now, I was finally alone, and all my friends were happy. 2 days later, I ran into George at a party. It's all about having children, he said. If you want to get married, it has to have kids. And you don't want to do it with someone older than 35, because then you have to have kids immediately, and then that's all it's all about. I decided to check with Peter, 42, a writer with whom I had 2 dates. He agreed with George. It's all about age and biology, he said. You just can't understand how immense the initial attraction is to a woman of childbearing years. For a woman who's older, 40 maybe, it's going to be harder because you're not going to feel that strong initial attraction. You'll have to see them a lot before you want to sleep with them, and then it's about something else. Sexy lingerie, perhaps? I think the issue of unmarried older women is conceivably the biggest problem in New York City. Peter snapped, then thoughtfully added, it provides torment for so many women, and a lot of them are in denial. Peter told a story. He has a woman friend, 41. She'd always gone with extremely sexy guys and just had a good time. Then she went out with the guy who was 20 and was mercilessly mocked. Then she went out with another sexy guy her age, and he left her, and suddenly she couldn't get any more dates. She had a complete physical breakdown and couldn't keep her job, and had to move back to Iowa to live with her mother. This is beyond every woman's worst nightmare, and it's not a story that makes men feel bad. Roger's Version. Roger was sitting in a restaurant at the Upper East Side, feeling good and drinking red wine. He's 39 and he runs his own fund and lives on Park Avenue in a classic 6 apartment. He was thinking about what I'll call the mid-30s power trip. When you're a young guy in your 20s and early 30s, women are controlling the relationships, Roger explained. By the time you get to be an eligible man in your late 30s, you feel like you're being devoured by women. In other words, suddenly the guy has all the power. It can happen overnight. Roger said he had gone to a cocktail party earlier in the evening, and when he walked in, there were 7 single women in their mid to late 30s, all Upper East Side blonde, wearing black cocktail dresses, and one wittier than the next. You know that there's nothing you can say that's wrong, Roger said. For women, it's desperation combined with reaching their sexual peak. It's a very vital combination. You see that look in their eyes, possession at any cost mixed with a healthy respect for cash flow, and you feel like they're going to Lexus and Nexus you as soon as you leave the room. The worst thing is that most of these women are really interesting because they didn't go and get married. But when a man sees that look in their eyes, how can you feel passionate? Back to Peter, who was working himself into a frenzy over Alec Baldwin. The problem is expectations. Older women don't want to settle for what's still available. They can't find guys who are cool and vital, so they say, screw it, I'd rather be alone. No, I don't feel sorry for anyone who has expectations they can't meet. I feel sorry for the loser guys who these women won't look at. What they really want is Alec Baldwin. There isn't one woman in New York who hasn't turned down 10 wonderful, loving guys because they were too fat or they weren't powerful enough or they weren't rich enough or indifferent enough. But those really sexy guys the women are holding out for are interested in girls in their mid-20s. By now, Peter was practically screaming. Why don't those women marry a fat guy? Why don't they marry a big fat tub of lard? Good friends, lousy husbands. I asked that very question to Charlotte, the English journalist. I'll tell you why, she said. I've gone out with some of those guys, the ones who are short, fat, and ugly, and it doesn't make any difference. They're just as unappreciative and self-centered as the good-looking ones. By the time you get to your mid-30s and you're not married, you think, why should I settle? Charlotte said. She said she'd just turned down a date with a beautifully eligible, recently divorced 41-year-old banker because his unmentionable was too small. Index finger, she sighed. And then Sarah beeped in. She had just gotten money to make her first independent film, and she was ecstatic. This idea of women not being able to get married, it's so small-minded. I can't even deal with it. If you want to get with these guys, you have to shut up. You have to sit there and shut up and agree with everything they say. Luckily, my friend, Amulita, called and explained it all to me. Explained why terrific women are often alone and not happy about it, but not exactly desperate about it either. Oh, honey, she cooed on the phone. She was in a good mood because she had sex the night before with a 24-year-old law student. Everyone knows that men in New York make good friends and lousy husbands. In South America, where I come from, we have an expression. Better alone than badly accompanied. Alright, you guys, and there you go. That was chapter 4 of the Sex and the City series. If you guys like the video, please thumbs up or send me a comment. Let me know what you think. And of course, you guys continue to look out for the Sex and the City chapters. So far, I've already did chapter 1 through 4. So if you want to check out the previous chapters, be sure to go back in my video. I'm going to get ready to watch the ECW, some ECW live thing on the WWE network. So that's what I'm going to do next. So thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, holla back. And stay tuned for more videos this week. Alright, you guys. Bye.